Welcome back, friends. Last time we covered some pretty interesting rituals for those that want to know more about our world. This tier will keep to that tradition, as many ritual seekers are seeking to know the truths they can't find through normal means. A lot of ritual creepypastas follow similar formula and setup, but do try to keep things interesting. The more and more of these I read, the more I understand what things people crave in their lives. They want to be able to tell the future, they want answers to all sorts of questions, and they want to just sometimes tempt fate. Let's just get right into this iceberg. This is the RitaulPastas Iceberg Part 3. Doorway to Serenity is our first story starting off this tier. It was uploaded to the Creepypasta wiki by user XRWood and was written and posted for a Halloween story contest, in which it took first place. Doorway to Serenity opens up with two men having a conversation at the lake with some beers. Our narrator is a man named Ethan, and he is talking to his friend John. The conversation is about John's mother recently passing away. Ethan notes how John was upset because he didn't say anything to his mom before her passing, but he had recently seemed to be doing much better. Ethan asks him about it, and John takes a sip of his beer before starting his story. John explains that he was able to make things right in a very unbelievable way. Ethan sipped at his beer while listening. John seemed to be testing Ethan for whether he should even tell him or not. After a little prodding by Ethan, John continued his story. He had found a doorway. Before Ethan could really ask any questions, John continued. A doorway to a memory. One that gives the ability to change a memory. Ethan, of course, didn't believe his friend actually knew a way to change a memory. That's impossible. John doesn't sound like he's lying, Ethan notes, but he still finds it incredibly hard to believe. The story then shifts to John grilling Ethan about someone named Peter. Peter was a friend of Ethan's who was now in a vegetative state after trying to take his own life. Ethan says that he wasn't his friend, but John notes that he seemed to become depressed after this event. John tells his friend that he should try the doorway, and reaffirms that it actually works. 2 weeks pass and Ethan finds himself ready to try and conduct the Doorway to Serenity ritual. He didn't quite believe John, but if it didn't work, it wouldn't really be his problem anymore. Ethan looked at the scribbled notes of his friend. The ritual needed to be conducted at the pier. As John noted, it looked kinda like a doorway. This would act as a path into his memory. It also meant swimming was involved, which at night could be especially dangerous. The waves could get out of hand, not to mention that sharks roamed the waters near the pier. The first step for the ritual was to make sure that the waves were at least shoulder high. Step 2 required it be a full moon, and he had to swim at night. The third step was to swim through all 13 columns on the right side of the pier, then swim back inside the pier. Finally, he would have to swim out of the columns, like he was entering the doorway. The night of the ritual came, and Ethan noted that he wasn't alone at night, as divers seemed to be in the area. He steadied himself and began the ritual. The waves were indeed harder to swim through than he expected, but he was on the swim team in high school, so he could handle them for the most part. Ethan bounced around the waves, moving between the pillars with relative ease. Eventually he found himself bumping into one of them rather hard. He wasn't worried about a concussion, and just kept swimming. Eventually he swam through the doorway and started to see his vision fading. When he came to, he was back on land. He was wearing a bunny costume, and he was 10 years old again. John had been telling the truth. You really could relive a memory. He knew what memory this was, and knew exactly what he had to do, so he grabbed his sack of candy and was on his way. It was Halloween, and he was about to see an old friend. Today, Ethan was meeting up with Peter. He found Peter, and the first thing he did was scare him. Ethan noted how weak the poor boy was, and how he lacked any kind of spine, which is why they were out there that night. The plan was to do some fake ritual to make Peter become stronger. Ethan knew it wouldn't work, based on his memories. Either way, the two still made their way into the woods. The ritual started, and Ethan pulled out a large knife. He had Peter lay on the ground and did some kind of ritual while standing over him. He plunged the knife down and Peter started to cry. The knife landed firmly in the dirt next to the boy's head. The two stayed like that for a moment. Ethan sighed and pulled the knife from the ground. He looked down at the crying boy. Ethan put the knife to his throat and sliced it clean across. The gurgling sounds of Peter trying to cry and breathe continued. Ethan watched as Peter bled out on the ground. He didn't give any hint of emotion. Once he was sure he was dead, he grabbed his stuff and put it in the back of his sack. He took it to a nearby overpass and threw it over the edge. He could hear coyotes near where he had left Peter's body. Ethan awoke fighting for his breath. He had nearly drowned and was now being helped by one of the divers that he'd seen before. She asked if he was okay, and he smiled and said he was finally okay. I can see why this creepypasta won that contest. This is a really good ritual pasta. It sets up the characters really well and delivers on their stories. The starting section is a little slow, but it fits perfectly with how the story is being told. Ethan has some weird connection to Peter. He feels bad for him, but there's definitely something else there. John's story with his mom is really well done too. The ritual itself is something very unique. It's not so easy that anyone could do it, but it's not so hard that it couldn't be done. The reward is the ability to change a memory, which is pretty cool. It also never states if you're supposed to change the memory for the better or the worse. The ending is vague and creepy. This is a good story and I highly recommend people check it out. The next story in this tier is Lucifer's Playlist. This story was created by W.C. Hotchkiss and is about a playlist that can be found online. The only place I'm able to find this creepypasta is on Mr. Creepypasta's YouTube channel as well as on his SoundCloud profile. It looks to have started circulating in 2015. The creepypasta is told through a character named Lucifer, not the devil or Satan as the voice protests. They are two completely different beings, though he does note that he has very similar tastes. Lucifer explains that he is a playlist full of information. He claims that knowledge gives him power, but also sustains him. He originated from the mind of a witch, the writings of an author, and the voice of a narrator. He claims to be a virus or a curse, but really he is just a playlist found in the darkest corners of the internet. Lucifer loves to play games, not too dissimilar from the devil. His game is simple. You will find all sorts of sections in the playlist that will give you answers to any questions you might have. You can learn what the meaning of life is, how to find true love, or how to dismember a human body. These are just a few of the playlist's options available to you. Of course, you can't just listen to whatever you want without payment. A trade of knowledge is required for whatever it is you desire. You can listen to whatever you want, but you must add something to the playlist. So what's stopping you from listening to the whole playlist without payment? Lucifer lists off several things that will happen to you. He'll enter your head, start to twist you, start to siphon off your knowledge and sanity until you're nothing but a husk. Lucifer continues explaining where you can find his playlist. He states that he is being found in more and more places lately. It used to be found on the deep web, but now his file is being shared around even more. The easiest place to find him is on the dead body of someone who decided they wanted all of the knowledge with none of the payment. Lucifer's playlist gives off the vibes of an easy to find channel infinity. It offers any knowledge you could ever want without the long and tedious ritual. The price being that you have to add to the playlist anything that you receive. It never stated exactly what kind of knowledge trade is required though. Could I just use my very extensive knowledge of internet folklore as tribute? I'm not sure if it would really want that. This story was kind of hard to find. I could only find the narrations by Mr. Creepypasta, which is pretty funny since the story explicitly states that the playlist can be found in any search engine. Overall, I like the pasta. I think the idea is worth checking out. If you find Lucifer's playlist, send it my way. I have an extensive creepypasta lore that I want to pass along. The Stonegate ritual originates from a Reddit post on No Sleep. It was posted by user author Jojo in September of 2019. This one hasn't been reposted to the Creepypasta wiki yet, but it has a few narrations on YouTube. The Stonegate ritual is a lot easier to perform than other rituals on this iceberg. It doesn't require much, but it also can't be started by just anyone. The ritual will appear before people and it's up to them to decide if they want to undertake it or not. The ritual doesn't actually require a stone gate. It's actually something you can encounter while walking a path or trail. A road of any kind will do. You'll happen upon two semi-identical stones. The two stones will sit on either side of the road. One will be a bit shinier than the other. Their colors won't be the same, but they will both have that same smooth and flat look. To start the ritual, you simply need to walk over to either stone and pick it up. The stones will feel smooth in your hand, and you'll notice that they are completely clean. No dirt, no scratches, nothing. Once you have either stone, you'll feel a need to make your way over to the other stone. As you do so, the world around you will start to distort and lose color and form. The stone will start to feel heavy, like the heaviest object you ever carried in your life. Each step will be agonizing as the stone will increase weight. You have to proceed to the other stone. The world around you will lose all vibrance until it appears to be just white lines in a void. Those lines will come together and create something. That thing will watch you as you cross over to the other stone. Just as you feel like you can't carry anymore, you'll reach the other stone and the weight of your current stone will be back to normal. The world around you is now back to normal as well. The pain you felt from carrying the stone will remain, but everything else is as it should be. So that's it then. Well, not quite. You've completed the Stone Gate ritual. The being that was watching you is now gone, and all of a sudden your luck seems to have picked up. You got that promotion, people are giving you more attention now, and you seem to be getting better at different hobbies you had. You continue to walk down the paths you had before and notice the stones again. You ignore them, not wanting to do that again, but notice that your life is starting to stagnate. All your luck is starting to fade, and you're back to life as it was before. Well, not exactly, because the good luck is starting to turn into bad luck. Every time you walk by the stones, you'll notice a faint outline of the creature from before watching you. It'll only last for a few fading moments, and then you're back to reality. No matter what you try, nothing will work out as you expected it would have if you hadn't done the ritual. If you try the ritual again, you'll notice that the rock you've picked up keeps getting lighter. It eventually gets too light for you to stay on the ground and can disappear into the sky. If this is to happen, you'll be met with incredible amounts of bad luck. Losing your job, failed marriages, or other mishaps will litter your life. The only chance you'll have is to try it again. It's a gamble every time you attempt this ritual. Sometimes you get the heavy rock and sometimes the light. Each one will either give you good luck or present you with the option of not getting bad luck. You can skip the ritual altogether, but every time you do, the creature will last a bit longer in your vision. Most likely it'll do this until it lasts long enough to get you. I've read a lot of these rituals by now, and something about this one really intrigues me. The Stone Gate ritual is the one that offers you a lot, but if you try it, you'll never escape it. It's something you have to come back to over and over again or lose everything. This presents an interesting dilemma of being attached to the ritual for the rest of your life. Whether you live long enough to see a natural end, or whether this creature brings it to you. I love the imagery used here, and the vagueness of the creature is also great. The Stranger ritual is pretty short, so I'll be reading it in full before talking about it. Have you ever heard about the Stranger ritual? No? Well, perhaps that's good. Perhaps you're safe for not knowing, and perhaps I shouldn't tell you, seeing as how this ritual can be a little dangerous. Still want to know? Very well, I'll tell you. The Stranger ritual is a ritual that allows you to contact something from outside this world, something beyond the limits of human understanding. Some say that the ritual allows you to contact death itself. In order to perform this ritual, you'll need a few things. First, you'll need a door, preferably a wooden door. It cannot have any windows or peepholes on it, and it must have a lock. Next, you'll need 2 candles, 1 white and 1 black. Then you'll need a gift. It's important that the gift not be something you have a personal connection to. It is advised to offer something that you have bought that day. Candy seems to be a wise choice. Then, you'll need a piece of chalk, or some other writing instrument. Chalk is probably the best choice though. Finally, you'll need a photo of another person. It has to be one you've taken yourself, and the more recent the photo, the better. It cannot be a photo of anyone from your immediate family. You'll need to wait till night falls before you can do the ritual, and although it can be done at any time of night, it is more likely to succeed the closer it is to midnight. Write the word stranger on the door you're using, then place the 2 candles on either side of the door frame, and light them. Now make sure all the curtains in the house are pulled, all the windows are closed, all the mirrors are covered, and all the lights are turned off. You must also be alone in the house for this ritual to be done successfully. Stand in front of the door and place your gift, just out of the range of the door so that when it opens, it will not hit or knock the gift over. This will also mark your safe zone. Make sure the door is closed. Then knock 3 times, no more, no less. Then wait. If you hear 3 knocks coming from the other side of the door, then the ritual was successful. Open the door, but do not open it fully or look outside. Open it a little and then turn around and stand behind your gift facing away from the door. You should hear the door open fully and you will feel the stranger's presence. It will feel wrong, like something that isn't supposed to be there. Stay calm, the stranger is your guest, so you will not be harmed. Under no circumstances must you turn around or look at the stranger. This is important. Some have dared to look at the stranger, and the ones that survive go completely blind or completely insane. But they always say that the stranger's presence never goes away. If you look at the stranger, then the stranger will never leave. If the stranger approves of your gift, then it will ask you for a name. This is when you must look at the photo and say the name of the person in the photo. Then wait until you hear the door close. Once the door is closed and you no longer feel the stranger's presence, you may turn around. If the ritual is successful, your gift should be gone. You must lock the door. Do not unlock it until sunrise. This will prevent you from entering the stranger's world and anything from there getting into this one. You must also wipe the word stranger from the door and burn the photo you used. If you are too frightened to complete the ritual, simply apologize and ask the stranger to leave. Wait until you hear the door close, then turn around. Wipe away the word stranger from the door and lock it. Do not unlock it until sunrise. Should you do this, never attempt the ritual again, as the stranger will not be happy. Over the next 3 days, check the obituaries. If the ritual was successful, then the person whose name you gave to the stranger will die. Although there is no consistent cause of death, heart attacks seem to be one of the more common causes. It is important to make sure that the photo you used has been burned. If it has not been burned by the time the victim has died, then the image will fade and in its place an image of you will appear. This will be a sign that you will die within 3 days. That's the ritual, and the reward for this is getting someone killed. It's kind of like hiring a supernatural hitman. A strange ritual is you don't really get anything in return. I guess unless you really hate someone. The bit where you need to take a picture of them is kind of interesting though. Kagome Kagome was one of the very first RitaulPastas that came to mind when starting the research for this iceberg. I remember finding a narration of it on Mr. Creepypasta's YouTube channel at an absurd hour. I also remember it terrifying me. The story starts by mentioning another well-known creepypasta, Gateway of the Mind, which is a pretty good story. I highly recommend it. This pasta also tries to establish itself as a history-based story. What I mean by that is it tries to set itself just after the events of World War II. There have been a few creepypastas that have done this, and it's a very easy way to give an air of legitimacy. Honestly, I don't hate this approach. Kagome Kagome describes tests that were being conducted by the Nazis during World War II. The purpose of these experiments was to discover immortality. There was a belief that a human brain had a kill switch that would initiate it at a certain part of someone's life. They believed they could somehow turn off this kill switch, giving people the gift of immortality. The scientists were told that they couldn't conduct the experiments in Germany for fear that the regular populace might see them. So they're set up with a plan to conduct these experiments in Japan, and so they set up their base of operations in an orphanage in the hills of Japan near Hiroshima. The scientists believed that the experiments couldn't be conducted on the old or dying. Disease or the already activated kill switch would render them useless to the experiment, therefore they had to conduct these experiments on children. The experiment started on the adult caretakers at the facility. They needed to compare the brains at different developmental cycles. They found the kill switch was found in the cerebellum. With this information, they started their first experiment to remove the kill switch from one of the orphan's brains. They were able to do so, but found that the child had died after the experiment's conclusion. The body of the girl was dumped behind the orphanage. After a multitude of failed experiments, finally they got one working. The youngest girl at the orphanage was the first official success. She lost the ability to sweat, but seems fine otherwise. Another issue was that she seemed to die every night and revive in the morning. A few Russian scientists were brought in to help with the experiments in exchange for being able to conduct a few of their own. This led to amputation and replacement of a girl's arm. They wanted to see how a prosthetic could be used in combat and needed to test its use outside of it first. The kill switch experiments proceeded until they were able to successfully reverse the kill switch in the adult caretakers. This is also around the time when the scientists started noticing the kids that had survived the experiment acting weirdly. The kids had been playing a new game they like to call Circle You, or in Japanese, Kagome Kagome. The kids would surround someone in the center of a circle. After that, they would link arms and spin around making scary faces at the child in the center. If they flinched, they lost. The scientists noticed that the kids, after dark, could be found just standing around in the orphanage, usually at the end of dark hallways or outside of their rooms. They would ask strange questions. This all unsettled the scientists. After the end of the war, the scientists packed up their stuff and left. 4 stayed behind for a while but were ready to leave before the caretaker and children asked if they would play one more game before going. The 4 scientists said yes and were later seen running away from the building screaming. Now, if you were to go to the hills near Hiroshima, it is said that you can still find this orphanage. The trees around it will all be cut and the trails are overgrown, but it'll still be there. If you choose to enter the orphanage, the smell will hit you first. It smells like death. Opening the door, and all you'll see are dark hallways. Once you enter, you'll hear children playing. Follow the sound to what looks like a playroom. Inside you'll see 10 people, the children and their caretakers. You'll see a kid missing an arm, one with no forehead, and one missing part of her jaw. One of the caretakers will approach you and ask if you'd like to play a game. If you choose to say yes, they will usher you in and place you in the center of the circle. You are now playing Kagome Kagome. The children will circle you and chant the Kagome Kagome. It'll appear that the children are reaching out and trying to slash at you, but it's your mind playing tricks on you. If you lose, well, it's not really known what happens to you if you lose, so try not to lose. If you instead say maybe to the caretaker's question, then the kids will start to scream inhumanly. They will scream that you need to make a decision, and if you say no, then the door will slam in your face. A creature will then appear at the other end of the hallway, and that's it for you. The only way to escape without playing the game is to say you do not understand. If you do that, then the caretaker will tell you to leave, and you should be quick to do so. Give a bow and close the door on your way out. This creepypasta was one of my favorites back in the day. It had such a creepy atmosphere and I love the way it's told. This one feels more like an experiment or history creepypasta than a ritual pasta though. The ritual part is the game of Kagome Kagome. I really dislike how this story starts and ends though. The beginning references another creepypasta and they do it again at the end. The ending references Zalgo and the Rake, which were very popular at the time, which kind of kills the originality of the story. The ending also has a section that says most creepypastas are fake, but this one is real. That's such a weak ending, and I absolutely hate it. If you cut that section off, you don't lose anything from the story. The premise is cool, and I still like the story, but the immersion-breaking sections really bring it down. Charlie Charlie is a game that went viral in 2015 with the Charlie Charlie Challenge. It's essentially a game where you write yes and no on a piece of paper at the corners. Then you balance 2 pencils on the paper and ask a question, and the pencil will move in the direction of the answer. The idea is that you are contacting a spirit of some kind and it is answering your question. This game comes from a very popular game in Spain called Juego de la Lapicera, or the pencil game. Then made its way to the English side of the internet with the name Charlie Charlie. A parody website claimed that the game had taken the lives of 500 people. This was then immediately picked up by a Fiji news site and spread as a fact. This led to the game being banned in Fiji schools and even the arrests of a few teachers. They were let go later, luckily with no charges against them. This of course led to the fear-mongers who said that the game was a danger to any and all who played it, very much in the same vein as D&D in the 80s, and Ouija boards before that. The fearmongers claimed that it led demons into your life. And yeah, the usual stuff. Overall, it's just a social game, something you can get a few friends together to play. It should be seen as no different than a Magic 8-Ball. Our next entry is the Dead Poets game. This is another question and answer ritual, sort of. The downside of this one is pretty hard to come back from. The ritual process starts with a quick history of the person who made the game popular. It was a magician named Alex that attempted the game in front of a live audience. This breaks a few of the rules, and thus the game punished him. To do the ritual, you need to follow these rules. You need to be alone, you need to be in a place where someone has died, and you need to take everything in the ritual seriously. Follow these rules and you'll have a fair chance at the game. In order to start the ritual, you'll need to be near the dead body of a poet. The poet can be anyone. They don't need to be famous or anything. Place the body of the poet on a table and place a chair at his feet and one at his head. Pour 2 glasses of alcohol, your choice, and place the glasses in front of the chairs. on the table. You need to summon the spirit with a polite greeting, raise your glass, and take a sip. Once you put down your glass, you should see someone sitting across from you. This is when the game begins. You must declare a letter, either A or B, and invite the spirit to the game. A gets to ask a question and B has to answer it. After each question, both sides take a drink. After each question, the letters and thus roles will swap. The goal is for you to be the letter A player when the game ends. For that to happen, both glasses must be empty while you are the one asking the question. If you are successful, you'll see the spirit take the glass and disappear. You need to blow out the candles and turn on the light. Leave the room as soon as that's done. If on the other hand the spirit wins the game, it'll blow out the candle. You need to turn on the light immediately. The spirit is now attached to you, and it'll haunt you until you give up. By giving up, I mean give it your body. You will then be trapped in that room until someone else does the ritual, which will be your only chance of escaping that room. The spirit is still free to use your body as it sees fit. That's the Dead Poets game. Not a bad story, but follows most of the common cliches of the RitualPasta format. The section about the magician who played is kinda cool, but doesn't really add much more than just a cautionary tale. Oh yeah, I didn't finish that part of the story. He ends up conducting the ritual at a theater and gets possessed by the spirit of a serial killer, which then turns him into a demon. Thus the cautionary tale that you need to follow the rules to actually be able to play the game properly. The reward is getting to ask a spirit questions, but the spirit is confined to a singular place where it can conduct the ritual. It's probably not going to know anything of value, so it's overall not worth attempting, which it does address at the very end of the story. And so, if you learned anything from this, do not take the risk by playing this game. It will ruin you. It will destroy you. It will dismantle the very fabric of your world. If you do choose to play this game, I suggest playing it alone. This RitualPasta is just decent. On to the next one. Tomino's Hell is a Japanese poem that is said to bring misfortune to any that read it aloud. The poem was very popular on 2chan, the Japanese version of 4chan, and even had people posting pictures of what happened after they had read the poem. There were even users that said they were going to try it and never came back. I'm going to now read Tomino's Hell in full. Well, the translation at least. His older sister vomited blood, his younger sister vomited fire, and the cute Tomino vomited glass beads. Tomino fell into hell alone. Hell is wrapped in darkness, and even the flowers don't bloom. Is the person with the whip Tomino's older sister? I wonder whose blood is on it. Hit without hitting. Infinite hell's one road. Would you lead him to the dark hell? To the sleep of gold, to the bush warbler. Fit as much as you can into the leather sack. For the preparation of the journey in the familiar hell. Spring is coming, even in the forest and the stream, even in the 7 valley streams of the dark hell. The bush warbler in the birdcage, the sheep in the wagon. Tears in the eyes of cute Tomino. Cry, bush warbler. Toward the raining forest. He shouts that he misses his little sister. The crying echo reverberates throughout hell. The fox pinoy blooms, circling around hell's 7 mountains and 7 streams. The lonely journey of cute Tomino. If they're in hell, bring them to me, the needle of the graves. I won't pierce them with red needle, in the milestones of little Tomino. That's Tomino's Hell, a bit of a dark poem. It was created by Seiji Yaso and first appeared in the book The Heart is Like a Rolling Stone. The poem has some dark imagery and a foreboding atmosphere. I can understand where people are coming from when they say this story can cause tragedy. The story of this poem spread is pretty interesting overall. I also want to mention that reading it aloud in the original Japanese is how you get the curse to work, so good luck, friends. The card game is sort of a Ouija board type game that you can play with a deck of cards. The required ingredients for this ritual are a deck of cards, some salt, a lighter, and some candles. This game can be played with any number of players. In order to play, you must first turn off all the lights in your play area. Next, you'll sprinkle some salt onto the deck of cards. Every person that is playing must participate in shuffling of the cards. The next step is to place all the cards face down in front of you in 3 groups of 6 cards. Then someone needs to ask if the spirits are willing to speak with them. The person who asks the question then hovers their hands over the cards until they feel heat coming from one. If the card they flip is hearts, the answer is yes. If it's spades, then the answer is no. If they get diamonds, then maybe. And if they get clubs, then it means they don't know. Each person takes turns asking questions and flipping cards. This is how the game is played. It works very similarly to Charlie Charlie and regular Ouija boards. The Creepypasta then states that if you start to feel anything strange while playing, stop playing the game. If you hear sounds such as whispering, knocking, or bangs, end the game. If you feel something touch you, end the game immediately. To do so, you must say goodbye, blow out the candles, and sprinkle salt all over the playing cards. Then you need to shuffle the cards again. The card game is honestly an interesting way to communicate with spirits. This one feels more accessible than many on this iceberg, aside from Charlie Charlie that just needs some pencils. You can't really say it does anything new with the formula, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes all you need is a good game idea. It's so simple that just about anyone can do it, and it could even be a fun card game to play with friends over Halloween. I couldn't find anything else related to the Creepypasta, just the original from the Horror Amino app. This one was short but sweet and to the point. Sometimes that's all you can ask for. This is another short creepypasta that I'll be reading word for word. This is an old trick, one I'm sure many of you have tried. Turn down the lights and stare into a mirror. Stare at your face and let your eyes go out of focus. Your face, the face you've known your entire life, will start to morph, twist, and become demonic before your very eyes. This used to be a fun party trick, especially if you were telling a scary story while it was happening. Something about watching your own face twist is just unnerving in such a deep and personal way. Don't ever do it. If you're reading this, just don't. I did it recently on the spur. I was walking out of my kitchen and my bathroom door was open. There was just enough light from the little kitchen light to see the mirror. I stared and watched my face turn ugly, same as always, until it smiled back. At first I thought I smiled. No, the reflection did. I don't know much, but I know that whatever's on the other side of the mirror hates you. Maybe because we just see it as our reflection, our property, something to use to comb our hair and brush our teeth. But it's alive and full of hate. I hear it now, at night, tapping on the mirror. It wants out. I tried to show my wife, but it's smart. She just sees the reflection, but as soon as she turns around, it smiles at me. The taps have started to turn into pounding. Not just at home anymore either. It goes wherever I go, and it wants me. Tonight I am alone. I can hear it tapping, and now it's pounding. Its face is that twisted face. See? I figured it out. That twisted face, that isn't from our eyes going blurry. No, that's its real face showing up. Oh god, I just heard the glass shatter. This creepypasta was created by Banning K in 1979, and it's pretty alright. The imagery of your face twisting in the mirror is something that has been covered to death, especially in horror media. I like the idea that just about anyone can do it though, but that makes it so you could do it by accident even. It also goes into the idea of another world existing beyond our mirrors, which I kinda like. The demon in the mirror trick is a short but sweet creepypasta. A Little Gift is a ritual pasta with an unknown author that was posted to the Creepypasta wiki. I can't find much more beyond that. It's a ritual that requires a lot out of you for a decent reward. The ritual pasta requires you to be in the UK and go to a very specific place called the Queen's Head. Before any of that though, the creepypasta mentions that you have to be of a certain mind before attempting this ritual. They explain it as you wouldn't mind if life just ended. You'll need to go to a crossroads area, one where 4 towns connect to one another. Say that, I've seen these crossroads too many times. Next you'll head into the pub, and it'll look a little different. Everything will have taken a step back in time. Sit at the bar and order the house Malefic. The man will oblige you, and as you finish it, he'll ask you to leave. You'll need to leave immediately, as he can be a very callous man. Go outside and you'll see a black horse. Take it, it's yours. You must ride him for a while, into the fog and down a road that looks like it hasn't been used in years. You will see people along the way who will tell you to stop following the road. You'll see family, friends, and others who will want nothing more than for you to stop. You may even see guards. Do not let them stop you. Eventually you'll come upon an enormous gorge. It's so deep that you won't be able to see the bottom. The next step is to jump in with the horse. This part, according to the story, is where most people fail. As they fall, they will approach by some otherworldly being. He will show you your loved ones, even those that have already passed, and he will promise you a life with them. You must deny him. Doing so will have you wake up in the most comfortable bed you've ever slept in. The rewards for this ritual are irresistible charm, not being able to be harmed, and immunity to every disease. All you have to do is jump. This ritual pasta, when taken at face value, appears to be pretty simple, where a being, most likely the devil, is trying to convince you to jump into a gorge for a reward. The being that is talking to you before is trying to convince you that life is still worth living. This is clearly the devil trying to convince you to end it all, while the opposite force is trying to pull you back. The narrator for this story is very deceptive sounding, which is probably done on purpose. This is a good ritual pasta, as it feels like the ritual portion is just done to trick you. It's somewhat similar to the way the devil in the mirror trick actually worked. It makes the ritual a bit more deep than the base storyline alone. (630-296-7536) seems like an ordinary number. It's a number that leads to a company called Boothworld Industries. This story was first posted on No Sleep in 2013 and is a standout story. I'll get to that after the story though. A creepypasta starts with a man who just moved into his new cabin home. He was complaining since the contractor messed up his pipes and now he needs a plumber to come and fix it all. As he was waiting for the plumber, he got a call. He expected it to be the plumber, but heard something else over the line instead. "Welcome to Boothworld Industries. My name is Samantha, and I'll be your operator for today. Name." The man was confused, but gave his name. "Sir, we know who you are. I'm your operator. Please give me a name to access." The man still wasn't understanding, and tried to give a fake name, but got told that they knew that he had made that name up. This was starting to scare the man. He didn't know what name to give, until he finally blurted one out. "Jessica Goodwin," he finally said. She was his ex from high school. "Jessica Goodwin," she said. "Remodeling is scheduled for Wednesday." The story continues with the man stating he would like to reschedule it for today, if he could. The operator replied that there was an opening today, due to a cancellation. The operator told him 3 o'clock and the phone call ended. At exactly 3, the man received a phone call from the same number. The operator spoke. "Sir, this is Samantha with Boothworld Industries. Your courtesy call begins now." The man stood in shock as he could hear his ex's voice over the phone. She was begging for her life as she was being strangled to death. After it was done, a man came over the phone and told him that the remodeling appointment was complete. "Sir, was that to your satisfaction?" The operator was back on the phone. The man smiled and said yes, before answering that he had another name he wanted for someone who needed to be remodeled. The man was then told that he was scheduled for remodeling himself, and only way out of it was to recruit new members. The story ends with him handing out the phone number and inviting anyone reading to Boothworld Industries. This is a really interesting story. It's some sort of hitman agency that you can join, and there appears to be no limits for hits. Now, the story itself is well written and interesting, but what about that number? If you have seen my other videos, then you know I praise creepypastas that have other forms of media attached to the story to help in the storytelling. It adds an extra layer and makes it more than just a story. For a while, if you called this number, then you would be met with the voicemail box of Boothworld Industries. It was an actual number you could call. This made the story so much more than it was. I don't think the number is active anymore, but it was cool at the time. I never got around to actually calling the number myself, but many others did. This is what the recorded message sounded like.
You have reached Boothworld Industries. Your number has been logged and traced. A service representative will be with you shortly for remodeling. We at Booth World Industries say thanks. You have a marvelous day.
I love this. It adds so much depth to the story. I know the whole story is pretty obviously fake, but this little extra bit makes it just top tier easily. Your Alternate Soul is another short ritual pasta. There are quite a few of these on this tier, and I promise I didn't do that on purpose. It just kind of panned out that way. This one will be read in full again. At 12:17 a.m. on any given night arises the opportunity to awaken an alternate soul, the most common way of viewing them, through a mirror. It is through said medium that the process must take place. Begin at exactly midnight. By no light but that of a single candle, stand before the selected mirror. For 10 minutes you must concentrate in silence, focused entirely on your reflection. Do not look away from your eyes, for it will be interpreted as weakness and you will be overcome. After 10 minutes have passed, you must draw blood to smear in a line across the eyes of your reflection. Doing so will blind it, and you will watch as your own features begin to warp. Slowly, gradually, they will mutate into a frightening creature, one beyond the comprehension of those who have not experienced it. You must not look away through the entirety of the change. Soon the writhing movements of the image will cease. By now an echoing, inhuman sound will resound all around you. The creature will begin to ease towards the mirror's glass. You must keep watching as it approaches. If you do not extinguish the candle at exactly 12:17 a.m., the creature will escape. Be warned, should you succeed through any polished surface, be it mirror, wood, or window, your reflection will always be watching you. And that's the creepypasta. It is very short. It feels like this could have been condensed even more, and they could have made a short 2-sentence horror out of it. It's not a bad story though, and a long story doesn't equate better. Now let's talk about the bad of the story. The short nature fails to talk about any sort of reward for doing this. Instead, you just get tormented by some eldritch abomination that you created. Secondly, it just uses the mirror trope that so many of the other stories do. It feels kind of derivative of other ritual pastas. It's not bad, like I mentioned before, but it doesn't add anything new. There's literally a story on the same tier that is a similar entity in a mirror ritual. If this was your only ritual pasta, it wouldn't be bad, but since we've covered so many already, it's not great. Another senseless ritual is a ritual pasta that's written in a way that almost challenges other ritual pastas. It's refreshing after all the samey ones I've read so far. This creepypasta was written by Icy Dice and uploaded to the Creepypasta Wiki for a contest called the Summer Solstice. Icy Dice is a writer who I've covered a few times on this channel. It's interesting that you can see his writing improve with each new story. Another senseless ritual starts with the narrator explaining how bothersome noise is. The narrator explains how if awful noise bothers you, then they have a ritual for you. A ritual that promises a world free from the intrusive sounds of everyday life. In order to start this ritual, you'll need easy to obtain items. These include a pair of noise-proof headphones, a rose, a blindfold, and a bag of ice. It isn't recommended, but you can also bring duct tape. The creepypasta then states that if you continue reading, you've already started the ritual. You can't back out now, or something bad will happen. Something they will talk about later in the story. You need to go to a room that is secluded, close and lock the doors and windows, turn off all the lights, and let no natural light into the room. Sit in a chair or lie in a bed. You'll need to be comfortable as you'll be there for a while. Place the items you brought in a square around you. Think of a memory when the noise got to you most. Hold on to that memory and ruminate on it. Finally, open your eyes and grab your items. Blindfold your eyes, cup the ice to your body, place the duct tape over your mouth, and place the headphones over your ears. Make sure you do these in this order: bag of ice, duct tape, headphones, and then blindfold. That is the order in which you'll be conducting the trials. Finally, pick up the rose and the ritual will begin. The creepypasta continues with different rituals that cover the senses. Starting with touch. Your sense of touch is important, as are all the senses. Here you will lose that sense. You won't. You won't be able to feel pain or anything really. You have to make your way down this dark hall, and at the end, you'll see a creature of unimaginable horror. You can face this creature head on, but you should probably just run. Before you will be 3 doors. You have to try and open all 3 before whichever door you tried last will open. You'll notice that these 3 doors are hot to the touch. Well, you won't actually notice that since you can't feel anything, but if you look down, you'll see that your hands have terrible burns on them. Lucky for you that you feel no pain. The next trial will be taste, as you'll have to eat a bunch of bugs on a plate. This includes worms, maggots, and moths. You have to try to eat every last one of them off the plate. Don't worry, you won't be able to taste them, so this should be easy, right? The monster's still coming for you, so do be quick about it. The next step for the ritual takes you to a room full of clocks. They will be ticking, but you won't be able to hear it. This is the trial for hearing, and you must touch one of the clocks so you can feel its vibrations. A small tracing of the wood and inputting your birthday is all that's required here. Once you're done, a staircase will open and take you up. Once at the top, you'll need to jump. It'll hurt a bit just as you notice that your sense of pain has returned. Around you will be a maze. You notice that you can't actually see. The final trial is for your sight. You'll need to feel your way around the maze and be careful not to set off any traps. Once you've found a door handle in the maze, pull it open and your sight has been returned to you. Congratulations, you've completed the ritual. Now time for your prize. You'll feel your body start to warm up, and then you'll notice heat blisters popping up all over your body. Your reward for completing this ritual is to become the creature that you were trying to escape from. Every sense will be burned away, except for your hearing. Now you'll need to hope someone else attempts this ritual, as it'll be your turn to try and find them in order to steal back your senses. And that's another senseless ritual. Honestly, it's really good. The writing keeps you involved and it feels like the narrator isn't being upfront about everything right from the beginning. This gives a sense of betrayal before you even finish the story, which is cool. I kinda saw the ending coming, but still liked the execution. I'm not sure who won that contest, but I'd be surprised if this wasn't either the winner or in the top 3. As far as RitaulPastas go, this one is very much worth your time. And that's the end of the RitaulPasta Iceberg Part 3. This tier had a lot of shorter stories, but still ended up being a very long video. I haven't really talked about it yet, but covering an entire genre of creepypasta really shows what tropes and cliches people love to latch onto. A special thanks to my Patreon supporters, Blow Nose and Nora Kingsley, and thank you to everyone who watches my content. I love making YouTube videos, and it's thanks to you all that I can keep doing what I love. Part 4 is next, and I'll either be doing a solo video or just wrap it all up in one giant video. We'll see what time permits. Thanks again everyone, and I'll see you all in the next video.